Warning: the following video contains sensitive content regarding child loss and other motherhood topics that is not suitable for children under 18 and may not be suitable for certain audiences. Viewer discretion advised. All right. Welcome back to our channel, everybody. I'm here with Nina, and we're
Hi.
going to be sharing her story today. Take it away.
It's about Carson. She was my first pregnancy. My husband and we had just gotten married in May of 2021. And we decided then, like, okay, let's start trying for a baby. We want a family. So when I was 19, I was told that I would have a very difficult time carrying children to term because I have a heart-shaped uterus. So that was devastating to me. And I kind of just always had it in my mind. I'm like, I'll probably never have kids. It was also at the time that David and I had just started dating. And I was like, oh, great. He's not going to want to be with me. But he didn't care. And we kind of just figured that maybe we just wouldn't ever have children. And then we got married in May 2021. And we decided then we were going to start trying. My OB had told me that since I hadn't had my period in about 5 years, that it would take me a while to get pregnant, like at least a year. We ended up getting pregnant like 2 or 3 months after trying in July. We had our first appointment in August. We got to hear her heartbeat, and that was wonderful. I was like really nervous about it because I hate hearing heartbeats and I hate feeling them. And so I was afraid that I would hate hearing it. And so, but it was great. I loved it so much. And luckily, I got a video of it too. And I wanted to announce like immediately. And David was like, I don't know, we should just wait for, that safe zone. I was like, no, like that's stupid. I would never have a miscarriage. Like that rarely ever happens. That's not going to happen to me. And so I announced, and everything was great. And then we had our next appointment was September 17th. And I remember being so excited that morning because we were told that we would find out the sex of the baby, and like we would just like get to see the baby and everything. And so we were super excited. And then for some reason, David was able to go to our first appointment. And but for some reason, the second appointment, they changed their rules again about having visitors come with you because of COVID. So I had to go in there by myself, and David waited in the car. I got a doctor that I hadn't met before since it was a large practice, and it was just so normal and exciting, and okay, like let's see this baby, and okay, lay down. And it was also the first ultrasound where like it wasn't a transvaginal one. So I like really feel pregnant now because I got the the belly ultrasound. And so he was kind of like looking around, and he was like, okay, let me go grab somebody real quick. I just need my assistant or something. And I'm still just like, okay, yeah, no problem. And a woman comes in and they're looking again, said, okay, maybe baby's just like still pretty small. So let's do the transvaginal one too, just to get closer to the baby. And after like 10 seconds, he was like, okay, well, I'm sorry to have to say this, but there's no heartbeat. and laying there like, wait, you're not supposed to say those words to me. Like, what's happening right now? And I'm like, do you have the volume on? Because last time I was able to hear it, and like, maybe you don't have the volume on. They're like, can you just check again? He's just like, no, like, it's like the baby's not there, and like you can tell by like the stuff around here, and like trying to like explain it to me, and I'm just like crying, not taking any information in. And I'm sitting up at this point, and he goes, well, welcome to the club, and pats my knee. And I'm like, okay, like, what doctor says something like that? And he said, well, I'll give you the weekend to decide what you want to do. You have your options of a DNC, or have it happen naturally, or you can go home with the pill and like talk it over with your husband and see what you guys decide. And I'll give you a call on Monday so I can talk to the both of you about it. So I said, okay. And he printed out the little ultrasound photo for me. And I had to walk through the doctor's office with a waiting room full of pregnant women. And I'm like sobbing. I just can't even try to hide it. And I walk out to the car, and I opened up the door, and I said, we lost the baby. There's no heartbeat. And I don't really remember, both David and I don't remember the drive home after that. I think I cried the whole time, and I just was staring at her ultrasound photo. Got home, and David just like collapsed onto the ground, and we just laid there in the hall just like crying. And I just remember being like, I don't want to be here. Like, I don't want to be in this house anymore. I want to go back home, because at the time we lived in Arizona. We moved like 12, 13 hours away from home. And I just like wanted nothing to do with this place. I like to remember what happened in those days. Like, I feel like I probably blocked it out. There would be moments where I would forget that it happened, and I would be like, oh, I should put this on the registry. The doctor had told me, yeah, for the weekend, like, it's possible that like that it can happen on its own, so just like be prepared. And like, you could be experiencing cramping and bleeding and stuff. And so I was like terrified that that would happen, because I knew immediately I wanted to do the DNC. I did not want the trauma of it happening at home. I had to wait about 2 weeks to get a DNC. And that was like the 2 worst weeks ever. I wanted the baby out of me, but I was also not wanting to miscarry. And then also having that thought of like, well, my body's still like, I'm still super nauseous. My boobs hurt, and I'm not cramping, and I feel like I'm getting that pain in my uterus, like it's stretching. And so, maybe he got it wrong. Maybe he just like sucks at doing his job, and like I have to go get a second opinion. It's like battling internally like about that. Like, maybe there's hope of something. And I had my pre-op appointment, and he was like, yeah, like, let's just take a look again, just double check that I was right the first time. And then he said, yeah, there's still no heartbeat. And then feeling like I was just going through it all over again. I didn't want to get an ultrasound again because I didn't want to be told that again. But I also was like, well, maybe I should get a second opinion. But I think I knew like deep down it was true. And I just like didn't want to hear those words again. I had my D&C on the 29th. David also wasn't allowed to go with me for that. He had to wait in the waiting room. And so I went to triage by myself and I was just crying the whole time. I was so anxious and I was so upset because I would no longer have my baby inside of me. And that was like really hard to come to terms with. It took me back, and I obviously don't remember anything, but I woke up crying and holding my stomach, and the nurse, I could hear her saying, talking to somebody, asking if David could come back and see me because I was having a hard time. So I hear David come and he's helping getting me dressed and transferring me over to the wheelchair. And he goes out to bring the car around, and the lady who's pushing me in the wheelchair, she starts to take me out. And by the time we get outside, I see David pull up, and I tell her, I don't feel good. I feel like I'm gonna pass out. And the next thing I knew, I was on the ground, and I just remember feeling like my legs hurt, and I can hear David telling somebody that like she had a seizure, she fell. We need to get somebody to help her. And there's a nurse that has one of the smelling salt things on my nose, and so I could wake up. And they wheel me to the ER that was right next door. And I get admitted, and I have to stay the night in the hospital and do all these neurological tests that I passed. And they really didn't have a reason for me having a seizure after. That was just like, just more trauma to deal with. And especially for David, he lost a baby and now has seemed like his wife almost died from having a D&C. And we're also all alone. He doesn't have support. That was really tough. And that was pretty much all that I thought about, was how he was doing during it. Because like I literally could not imagine witnessing him go through that. And me being alone through it. And we got home. I really didn't bleed that much. I was like kind of surprised. And it was kind of nice because I thought, okay, great. I'm not going to be like even more traumatized from all of this. Like maybe it'll just like, we're done with it now. But I was still just like super depressed and didn't want to get out of bed and just crying all the time. And I really can't remember a lot of what I did during that time. And then on October 8th, I I started cramping really bad. And I thought, that's weird, but like I guess I could still be going through the like the results of a D&C and stuff like that. And it was around 11:30 at night, and they started feeling like contractions. And I went to the bathroom, and I just keep seeing all these really big clots. So I woke David up, and I asked him to take me to the hospital to get checked out. And I remember on the way there, I told him that I swear this doctor did not get this baby out of me. I'm like literally having contractions. I'm giving birth right now. And I had to wait like 2 or 3 hours in the ER, still bleeding and contracting and just crying. And by the time they saw me, I wasn't bleeding anymore. And I got an MRI done, like a contrast MRI, to see if there was like infection or bleeding or anything like that in my uterus. And everything looked okay. So they decided that they would just monitor me for a couple more hours, and then I would go home. So I got home around like 7 or 8 a.m. the following day. And I was really, really upset because I had told my OB that I wanted genetic testing done and I wanted to have my baby's remains um, so that I could cremate them and have them. And he kind of just blew it off. I almost felt like it was done on purpose, that he didn't get everything out. And not to mention that he was running late for my DNC. He was like an hour and a half late to it. And so I was thinking, okay, well, maybe he rushed and didn't get everything. And and I did end up getting a pathology report back, and it had told me that there were only placental tissue that was tested. So I'm assuming that he pretty much just got the placenta out, and like maybe some of the baby. I don't know, but I definitely miscarried at home. And so that was like really, really devastating to me. Like, I now don't have my baby. I have an urn and I have ashes of, I'm assuming, a placenta, but I don't have her. And that just like still me up. Like, I hate it so much. And there's just like so much more of drama and just like this doctor. I feel like he really botched this whole thing. I don't know if I can like go into detail about it. During our appointment to discuss the DNC, I guess the pre-op appointment, he had a TV on in his office and it was like Fox News or something. And he was just like going on and on about his opinion on immigrants and like laws and stuff. And I'm just like, okay, I'm here to like discuss the DNC and like I'm crying right now. Like, can we maybe not do that? And he like telling me welcome to the club, and his wife has had a few, and it's like whatever. And at my post-op appointment, as he's walking out, he's like, hey, like, better see a baby in you soon. Okay, bye. And then he like popped in when he heard that I had been admitted to the ER, and he popped in and he was just like, wow, like what happened? Like, that's super weird. And just letting you know, like, it wasn't anything I did. Like, everything was good on my end. Okay, bye. And I was like, okay, that makes it suspicious. And yeah, then at the post-op appointment too, he was like, yeah, that's so rare that a seizure would happen after a DNC. But weirdly, the same day I did a hysterectomy and the same thing happened to that lady. Like, huh, what a weird thing. Let's check out like the common denominator here, guy. Like, if it's so rare. Um, so I mean, I know that he's said like so many other things and I can't remember them, but he made the experience so awful. And I ended up finding out that he's had so many complaints about him. Um, and that just like terrifies me. And I feel like that's something too that, like, if you move somewhere that you're not familiar with and you go through something like you're gonna have a baby and everything, like definitely do so much research on all the doctors in your area, because I didn't. I just picked like the main practice, and it's like one of those where you kind of just rotate through the OBs that are there, because it's like whoever's on call and stuff. And yeah, I wish that I had done research and had known that about him. And I did report him, but he was just extremely unprofessional, made the whole experience a million times worse. I didn't find anything that he did was wrong. After that, after all that happened, I just remember being so traumatized that I was like, I never want to go through this again. I don't want to have children. I don't want to do this. Like, this is so traumatizing. I could not stand to experience another loss like that, or potentially like have a later loss. And so David and I were like, yeah, okay, like, let's not have kids. And then, like, literally a month later, I found out I was pregnant with Amelia. And I called him at work crying, like so upset that I was pregnant. And we were like, what do we do? I even was like, should I get an abortion? Because I don't want to go through this again. And David was like, well, let's see what happens. Like, we did want to start a family, and like getting an abortion would still just be like another super traumatizing thing to go through. And I was like, yeah, that's true. Um, like, yeah, I guess we'll just like see what happens. And but I still just like, I was not happy about being pregnant so soon, and like still going through that mourning and the grieving, and being pregnant with a different baby. And and it sounds so mean, because like I have Amelia now, and like I love her so much, and like I wouldn't have anything done differently. Um, but I just always was like, why can't I be pregnant with Carson? Like, I want it to be Carson in there. I don't want to be pregnant with another baby. I I don't want this one. I want the other pregnancy. And it was also very strange that, because it happened so close together, that it never felt like I wasn't pregnant. So I would still get very much like thinking I was still in my first pregnancy. And it really didn't take until I was maybe like 18 weeks that I started accepting that it was a different baby, and that I was becoming excited to have her. And but a lot of all the thoughts of like, why is she why is Amelia progressing, and like, why do I get to like experience a whole pregnancy with her, and like, why am I not able to experience a pregnancy with Carson? And why couldn't she have made it? And just like so many questions like that, and like getting stuck in my head about it. Yeah. She was in the NICU for a week. She had meconium aspiration. Um,
That's right.
she was like, it was the worst labor and birth experience with her. It was so hard, but yeah, she had meconium aspiration, and I wasn't able to see her for the first 24 hours. And because of they worry about infection in moms when that happens. So I couldn't see her. And so David was with her, and we would like FaceTime each other so I could see her. And that was terrifying. Like her needing oxygen and like feeding tubes, and she needed a ventilator at one point. And um, yeah, it was terrifying. Like we were kind of like, oh, cool, like this is our luck, like
Yeah.
kind of thing. Like maybe we shouldn't have children. And then we ended up moving home 5 6 months after she was born, back to California. And I think she was 7 months old when I got pregnant with Enzo. And pregnancy was good. Labor, birth was good. We had like a minor scare with him. He had some D cells during labor. Uh, they were kind of like getting me ready for a possible emergency C-section, but everything was fine. He was born, and we noticed that he was spitting up a lot. And the postpartum people, they were like, that's fine, babies spit up all the time, like when they're newborns, they're just getting that amniotic fluid out and all that stuff. And like he did have like a bit of meconium issue go on. So they were like, yeah, like it could be kind of like that weird color too, but completely normal. And then, but we just kept noticing it was literally like every 5 seconds he was spitting stuff up. And we kept asking, is this normal? Can we get a pediatrician in here? And eventually we got somebody to get the pediatrician to come. And within like 30 seconds of looking at him, she was like, okay, we need to get him to the NICU. And so we were like, great, okay, like again. And we kind of like we weren't even stressed about it. It's strange to think that even just with Amelia, like we became kind of like desensitized by it. But we were just kind of like, yeah, okay, like take them. And then they called me and they were like, yeah, we kind of want you to come down here to talk to us. And I didn't super think anything of it. And they're like, yeah, so he needs to get a test done and we don't have it here. We need to have him airlifted to UCSF. And like, it could not be anything. It could be something we don't know. But he needs to go like right now, because he could possibly have a bowel obstruction. And so then we started freaking out. And the flight nurses came and they had their big gurney and all that stuff. And it was terrifying. And we're signing papers, and they wheeled me out to the helicopter pad thing, and we got to see them like put him in the helicopter. And like it was just surreal having to go through that. And like right when he took off into the air, we ran to the car, like packed up all of our stuff, packed up Amelia, um, and went to the Bay Area. And luckily David's my in-laws, they live in the Bay Area, so we dropped Amelia off there. And we got settled in the NICU. And they had just like a million tests done on him, ultrasounds, x-rays, and nothing, everything came back normal. And they had to, for one of the tests, they tested him for Hirschsprung's disease. And they had to take a biopsy of his butt. And so they had to give him an enema for that. And so that completely like cleared him out. And since then, since that happened, he had just started acting fine. Like he stopped spitting up. He was spitting up bile. That's why they were so worried about him. And so they were like, oh, well, like maybe it resolved. Like maybe it was just like a partial like meconium thing. And it resolved on its own with that enema. So we went home. He was there for a week that time. And then about a week later, he got super lethargic. He did not want to eat. If we like touched his stomach, he would cry. And so we took him to the ER, and they said like he was severely dehydrated. And that I mean, they were trying to put an IV in him for like at least an hour. And they were about to do the one where they like drill into your bone to get an IV. And that was scary. And then they were thinking, okay, well, because of his history, and we were at the hospital he was born at, they were like, well, we already know we don't have the resources that he needs. So we did another helicopter flight to UCSF. And this time I got to go with him in the helicopter. And that at least like made me feel a bit better to be able to go with him. And the next morning, David met us up there. And we were there for about 7 weeks, trying to figure out what the heck was going on with this guy. He just was still just throwing up bile, but he was also making bowel movements. So we knew, okay, it's not a bowel obstruction, but he's having symptoms of one, which is weird. All of his tests came back normal. We ended up doing genetic testing for cystic fibrosis, and we did another Hirschsprung's test. We did all these other genetics. Everything came back normal, and which was like a relief, but also frustrating. And it got to a point where David and I were like, are we just being really dramatic? Like that he's throwing up, like maybe he's just throwing up, and like that's not like it's not a big deal. And so we talked to his doctor, and we were telling them like we've just been like gaslighting ourselves, like thinking we're being ridiculous. And she was like, no, like we've thought about that too, but like something's just not right here. Like he shouldn't be throwing up bile, and like he's also losing weight. Like he's extremely malnourished. He was on TPN, which is like the food through an IV. So he couldn't eat like actual milk like that entire time because he would just throw it up. And they were suctioning his stomach continuously. And eventually, the last option was exploratory surgery. And we really didn't want that. But it was the only thing left that we could do. That was like we had just done all the non-invasive things possible. And because we were also assuming, the doctors had assumed, like it kind of seems like he's having intestinal pseudo obstruction. And so it's like your body thinks that it has a bowel obstruction, but it doesn't. And so people who typically have this condition, they need a G tube, and they need an alostomy bag, or I don't know what the other one is called. But so we were like, okay, now we have to think like we're gonna have a very like medically complex child, and we need to learn how to like deal with the G tube and a bag, and how are we going to have Amelia be around him with all that stuff. And like it was just so overwhelming and scary. And like the day that he went in for surgery, we were practicing on a baby doll that had a G tube and ostomy bag thing in it, and like learning how to clean it and how to put it in and how they work and stuff. And we were like accepting that that's what it was going to be. And then after like a 2-hour surgery, the surgeon comes out and he's like, okay, well, like we found a duplication cyst and it was on his intestine, and like we removed it. We removed part of his intestines. He should be fine after that. And yeah, so like problem solved. And it was just like the biggest wave of relief for us. And it was so hard to like actually come to terms that he wasn't going to need a G tube and stuff. Like we're so prepared for it. He's doing great. And he just has some little
What I also would really like to hear in your story is how you and David are doing.
He pretty much has yet to come to terms with things and like fully process everything that happened. When I had mentioned that he just like collapsed at home and just crying, that was the only time that he cried, was that day. And whereas like I cried every single night, all day, like still have moments of crying, and he doesn't. And I always felt, does he not, like, is he completely over it now? Or like, does he not care as much? Or like, was it just not that important to him? And then it made me look at myself and think, man, like, am I being super dramatic? Like, was it like it was just a miscarriage, like not that big of a deal? People have them all the time and like don't mention them. And like, why am I so upset? And uh, so I guess that's just where communication really was important, where I talked to him one day and I said, I just like, I feel like you don't care anymore, or like you're just completely over it. And he's like, no, I definitely like have my moments when I'm alone. I don't want to like do it in front of you because I feel like I have to be strong for you and be the one there to support you when you're feeling upset about it. Hearing like his perspective of it kind of like made me feel a bit better, but he also doesn't really talk about his feelings about it too. He also, for some reason, felt like a lot of it was his fault, because he was the one that brought up, like, well, like maybe we shouldn't share the pregnancy because, you know, what if something bad happens? And he felt like he jinxed it. And he just like always tells me that he's like so sorry that he had this happen to me. And like we're both just kind of like going back and forth, like, no, it was on me, it was on you. But eventually we got past that point of it was something that we couldn't control. And I had gone to therapy a lot for it and he hasn't. And so I've been able to talk about it a lot and like work through those emotions and feelings, and he's still kind of like, I'm not ready to talk about it. And I don't think he ever will be. We're used to being so different. We're like pretty much nothing about us is similar. So I'm kind of used to not understanding like why he does things or like how he does things, and kind of the same way with him. And also me being in therapy, I'm I was able to kind of like step back and be like, okay, you know, like he's doing his own thing. Like I don't want to push him to make him talk about something that he doesn't want to talk about right now. And so like I think we've been pretty good about it. I guess like I kind of am glad that we're that way, because the day that it happened and just him and I both being a wreck, it was kind of like, who's who's the stable one here? Like we need a stable person with all these emotions going on right now. It felt just like so chaotic, and I don't know, like it's hard to explain that feeling, but yeah. For anybody who is wanting to continue to grow their family after a loss, I would highly recommend to make sure that you are mentally and emotionally ready for it. I was not, but I also wasn't trying. So I didn't have that time to grieve and process it and then go into a new pregnancy and enjoy that time. Like enjoy it as much as you can, because most of it's anxiety. But that was something that I wish that I had, was to be able to enjoy the beginning of that pregnancy with Amelia. So if there's some people who are ready to get back into it as soon as possible, and like that's totally fine. You do what is best for you in that time. It's just making sure that you've processed everything and that you can move forward, and you can kind of like hold space for that loss and also be able to enjoy the new pregnancy that you're going to have. Because when you don't have that, it just is, it's a mess. And like, I highly don't recommend doing it. And it's also completely okay if you've experienced a loss and you're like, nope, I I don't think I want kids anymore. Like I don't want to go through that again. Even if it's like an early loss or second trimester loss or anything, it's completely okay to like change your mind and not want to try again, or maybe come back to it later in a year or so. Like there's no time limit on it. I am obviously very, very happy that I have all of my babies. I still I still wish that I waited to have Amelia. It was a very, very rough pregnancy emotionally with her. And I feel like it really affected even kind of like our relationship now. I definitely distanced myself from her like the whole pregnancy. So, and I feel like that continued on into her being here. So that's kind of a bummer, but something that I'm like trying really hard to work on with her. To my daughter, Carson, happy belated birthday. And I hope that you were there with us. And I will always be sorry that I wasn't able to keep you safe and keep you growing. And that we love you, and thank you for sending us your siblings. It's been really an honor to raise them. And just that I miss you.